Okay, so what if I told you that one of the most successful marketing campaigns in history is over 1,000 years old? And get this, it's still working on us today. Let's dive into the incredible story behind the name Greenland.
Have you ever just looked at a globe, pointed to that huge white island up by the Arctic, and thought to yourself, why on earth is a place that's almost completely covered in ice called Greenland? It just doesn't make any sense, right? Well, it's a paradox with a fascinating story behind it.
And nope, this isn't just some random historical accident. The answer actually takes us back a whole millennium, right into the age of the Vikings. And it all comes down to one guy in particular, a fiery explorer with a really big problem on his hands.
Let's meet the man behind the myth, Erik the Red. So around the year 982, he gets himself banished from Iceland for 3 whole years. So what do you do when you're an exiled Viking? Well, obviously, you hop in a longship and sail west into the great unknown. And that's when he stumbles upon this colossal, wild, and incredibly icy island.
So yeah, most of what he saw was ice, tons of it. But he also found these sheltered fjords and coastal valleys that were surprisingly pretty green and fertile. And in that, he saw potential. He saw a new home. So when his exile was finally up, he sailed back to Iceland, not just with stories, but with a grand plan to build a whole new colony. Okay, but here's the thing. Here's his massive challenge. How in the world do you convince hundreds of people to just pack up, leave their homes, and follow you across the treacherous North Atlantic to settle a place that is, let's be honest, mostly a frozen wilderness? See, this wasn't really an exploration problem anymore. It was a marketing problem. And Erik the Red's solution? Oh, it was absolutely genius. He didn't just describe the land he'd found, he branded it. He created an identity that was specifically designed to launch an entire colony. I mean, just think about what branding really is. Even today, it's all about shaping how we see something to influence the choices we make. And Erik the Red, he understood this instinctively. And this guy was doing it 1,000 years before the first ad agency ever opened its doors. Incredible. Okay, so get this. The contrast here is just everything. The reality was this harsh, icy frontier with only a few spots you could actually live in. But the pitch? He called it Greenland, the Greenland. It's a name that just conjures up images of lush fields and endless opportunity. He was selling the dream, not just the real estate. So the big question, did it actually work? Oh yeah, you bet it did. The name was so appealing that more than 25 ships carrying hundreds of hopeful settlers followed him all the way back to establish the very first European colonies in Greenland. His marketing campaign wasn't just a success, it was a massive success. But hold on, because this is where the story gets really interesting. For centuries, we've kind of just thought of this as a clever Viking trick, right? But what if the name wasn't a total fabrication? What if it wasn't a complete lie? Well, it turns out modern climate science has uncovered this incredible secret. Thousands of years before Erik the Red ever set foot there, Greenland's climate was actually a whole lot warmer. Yeah, we're talking way, way back, something like 10,000 years ago, when parts of Greenland were, genuinely green. We're talking coastal meadows, wildflowers, maybe even some small forests. The island once actually lived up to its name. So what does this all mean? Well, Erik's choice of Greenland was without a doubt a brilliant piece of marketing. But it also sort of tapped into this ancient forgotten truth about the land itself. It wasn't a complete lie after all, which honestly just makes the whole story even cooler. Okay, so let's fast forward. What about the Greenland that Erik's settlers found and, more importantly, the one that we know today? Let's take a quick look at the modern reality of this supposed Greenland.
Get ready for this number. Today, a staggering 80% of Greenland is buried under a massive ice sheet. Just let that sink in for a second. 80%. Only that tiny 20% sliver along the coast is actually ice-free.
And to put that into perspective for you, Greenland's ice sheet is the second biggest chunk of ice on the entire planet. The only thing bigger is Antarctica. That's it. We're talking about a true giant of the ice world.
And as you can imagine, life there is a game of extremes. In the summer, you get 24 hours of sunlight, the famous midnight sun, which sounds cool until you realize it's still only about 4 degrees Celsius. Then winter hits, and the land is plunged into almost total darkness, with temperatures that can drop to a brutal -34. So let's wrap our heads around this whole story. From a Viking's kind of desperate marketing pitch to a modern nation dealing with its icy reality, this single name has created a legacy that's lasted for a millennium.
You know, when you really look at it, Erik the Red's story is just this powerful reminder of how a good story can literally shape our reality. A simple, well-chosen name convinced hundreds to chase a dream, to settle a brand new world, and it created a perception that, against all the visual evidence, still exists today.
And that really leaves us with one final thought, doesn't it? If a name that was chosen 1,000 years ago can still influence how we see a massive part of our planet, it really makes you think, what stories, what names are shaping your world right now?